Welcome to Tomversations, a monthly conversation with me, your host, Tom Hollingsworth, the networking nerd, on a variety of topics. This month, I'd like to step away from the technology for just a moment because I want to talk about something that honestly is kind of near and dear to my heart, and that's imposter syndrome. Now, I've talked about it in the past. I've written several blog articles about it. I even recorded another video. But I wanted to dig into it a little bit deeper because you may be thinking to yourself, oh, this is just a thing that I feel. But it actually goes a lot deeper than that. And the origins of imposter syndrome go back further than you might realize. So let's have a conversation about that. Now, for those of you who may not know the term, you probably know what this feels like. It's the feeling that you don't know what you're doing, that you don't deserve to be in a particular job role or in a particular group, the idea that you're a fraud. These feelings are actually not all that uncommon, but strangely enough, they're more common in high-performing individuals than they are anywhere else. How old is this? You'd be surprised to learn that the original studies that defined something called the imposter phenomenon are over 40 years old. They were originally done in 1978. So imposter syndrome is effectively as old as I am. And the researchers that did the studies found that a lot of people who are very successful in their careers have these feelings of doubt, have these feelings of fraudulent success. And they chronicled several ways to kind of combat that. But I actually wanted to take a slightly different track on this. And it's the opposite approach. Well, if people who suffer from imposter syndrome are usually highly skilled, what is the opposite effect that we have? Well, the opposite of a highly skilled person would be a low skill person. The opposite of feeling like a fraud is feeling like success. And you probably have already figured out that the opposite of imposter syndrome is beginner's luck. Now, beginner's luck is not a thing. We've proven this over and over again. But the elements that lead to the confirmation bias that give us the idea behind beginner's luck are actually kind of fascinating. Do you know why beginners tend to do better at a task than people who are highly skilled? Well, the first reason is because beginners have nothing to lose. Remember the first time that you decided you wanted to pick up a skill and try it out? Maybe it was juggling or, I don't know, learning how to play a musical instrument. Yeah, it was pretty bad. And you didn't care because you looked at it and you said, you know what? I am getting better at this. Everything that I do makes me a little bit better at the thing that I do. And so we kind of go into this low skill, low expectation mode where any vast improvement in our skills is seen as a very good thing. And the confirmation bias of this beginner's luck means that we tend to focus on the successes much more than the failures. Think about any skill that you've done where you have shown an aptitude for doing something rather well and then proceeded to continue to improve upon that skill because you showed the aptitude for it. There are certain things that I have done that I feel like I was well suited to do for spatial reasoning or ability to write well or something like that, where I continued down that track because I just happened to be good at it. There are also things that I've done that I was really terrible at that I just stopped working on because I knew I was never going to get better at it. That's how we look at things when we're a beginner. How do you look at things when you're an expert? Well, the first thing that actually happens is that experts tend to choke a lot whenever they're doing something. And I'm not talking about cutting off your airway. I'm talking about choking in the idea that they are capable of performing at the top level when it counts. Pressure is a funny thing. Stress and artificial pressure creates a situation where people are supposed to perform well because the outside influence is making them focus on their skill set. But more often than not, it actually causes most people to seize up, to be unable to use those skills. I use the CCIE as a perfect good example of this all the time. The CCIE lab exam is not a test of your knowledge. It's a test of what happens when you have to apply a wide breadth of knowledge in a very short time frame with a lot of restrictions. And it's no wonder that a lot of people don't do well in that kind of environment. Experts tend to freeze up given the opportunity. Not just that, but when you're a beginner and you're trying to learn how to do something, I'll use juggling, for example, you don't know the hand positions, you don't know the timing, you don't know any of the skill set that you need, right? Well, then as you get better, as you start to increase your skill set, as you start to improve, your muscle memory starts kicking in. Muscle memory is that sense that you just do things and they work because your brain is taking over and running your body without conscious thought. Well, guess what? Once you've gotten really good at a skill, the muscle memory kicks in and you stop thinking about it, but you also stop analyzing it and looking for improvements because you just get good at it. Going back to the CCIE example, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down in front of a keyboard at a router and typed in the same 7 commands in sequence because they're the commands that I always type in when I sit down in front of a router. You know, whether it's a login or going into enable mode or configuration mode, even if I don't need to go into configuration mode because I'm trying to look for something, muscle memory sits down. Video game players have the same kind of muscle memory when they're using a video game controller. It's your brain creating pathways that allow you to do things with less conscious thought. But when you get into a situation where your brain has created these pathways and refuses to break out of them, it starts to create unease inside of your body. Okay, so we've talked about beginner's luck, which is the opposite of imposter syndrome, right? Beginners are good at things because they have no expectations. Experts have high expectations of themselves, but we also know that we tend to freeze up under stress, and it's hard to break us out of these patterns of repeated muscle memory behavior, right? Can we get over imposter syndrome? Well, absolutely. It's not easy. But one of the ways that you can do this is to trust the people around you. And I've said this before, that even if you don't believe in yourself, believe that the people that you work with or that you're close to know what you are capable of, and they can see who you are underneath all of the criticism and the second guessing. I want you to think about someone in your career that you have considered a mentor. Not a coworker who helped you with a task or something like that, but if you had to write down the name of a person who was your mentor, did they take a chance on you at some point in your career? I would guarantee you that the answer is yes. The difference between someone who is just teaching you skill sets and someone who is actively guiding your growth as a person, as a professional, is recognizing hidden potential and developing it. Now, we conflate some of this with teaching. A lot of people, especially when they're first starting out on their career, would list some teacher in their primary school, secondary school, or higher education career as a mentor. But when you get into the professional arena, no one is ultimately responsible for teaching you a skill. It's something that I talk about quite frequently, that in order to become successful in IT, you really do need to become a lifelong learner. But more importantly, you need to find someone that is willing to take a chance on those skill sets and developing them as a mentor. I would say that every mentor out there has recognized that there's more to that person than just learning a skill set. And they've encouraged and developed and put you into a position where you can learn that. And I'm sure you've run into people who don't do that in their careers. Maybe they're completely focused on the job that they do and they want to defend their territory, or they want to make sure that they're not going to be let go because they're essentially training their replacement. Would you consider those people mentors? Maybe not for you, but would you consider them mentors in general? I would argue you probably don't. Now, let me ask you this question. Are you looking for people to take a chance on? As you develop the next generation of people that will be working with you, that will be trying to get better at their skills, are you doing what those mentors did for you and overcoming their imposter syndrome and helping them grow as people? I would hope that the answer is yes. Because if you are becoming the kind of person that people who are starting out need, but more importantly, the kind of person that those who are highly skilled need to hear from. How many times have we said it, not only to ourselves, but heard it said from other people that, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like I have a good grasp of this. And how awesome does it feel when someone says, no, you're doing a great job? It doesn't have to be a glowing review like on Yelp. It just can sometimes be, you know what? It's an intrinsic thing. You're really smart. You're really capable. You do well with this. Because that reinforces your core capability that you are doing the right thing, that you are where you need to be. We get to a point in our careers where we think that no one else feels what we do. And that was actually one of the groundbreaking things in the 1978 research on imposter phenomenon, that one of the ways to combat it was to get a bunch of people in the room to talk about what they felt. And as soon as you realize that everybody else felt the same thing that you did to a certain degree, it actually made it a lot easier to give a name to it and to get it out in the open and ultimately to release it. But I'll tell you that there actually are people who do not suffer from imposter syndrome, or maybe what they suffer from is a very mild case of it. Now, one of the reasons why this is so difficult for us to process in our brains is because we often equate confidence with competence. You may not know what you're doing, but as long as you sound like you do, we assume that you are highly skilled. And we know of people who find themselves in this situation frequently. A confident wrong answer is a lot better than an unsure correct answer. And unfortunately, we tend to reward that quite frequently. Just do something, just say something. Don't think about it, don't contemplate it, just react and go with your gut. Well, your gut instinct is actually a lot of shared experience and other things that have been built up time and time and time again. You actually don't get a really good gut instinct until you've had enough failures to understand what failure looks like. So people that are shooting from the hip, to use a colloquial term, more often than not, are probably not getting it right. But much like the beginner's luck scenario, they actually don't care if they get it wrong because they'd rather be confident that they got it wrong than take a little extra time to get it right. I can say that I have also faced that particular situation in my career. I once worked for an employer at the beginning of my career who asked me a question about an area where I had very little knowledge, but I thought I knew what the right answer was. So I gave him a description of what I thought the project should look like. He was a smart man because he looked at me with very cold eyes. And he said, "That's why you scare me, Tom, because I never know when you don't know what you're talking about." And I've taken that lesson to heart as I've grown in my career because it, for the people who don't understand the difference between confidence and competence, being assured in your wrong answer can lead to a lot of problems down the road. Imposter syndrome robs us of our true potential. It keeps us from being as good as we can be because the little voice in our heads is worried that it really might just be luck, that we don't deserve to be here. But understand that as a professional, the only reason you feel imposter syndrome is because you are highly skilled, because you do deserve to be there. So give yourself a break. And if you can't give yourself a break, find a friend, find a mentor, and have them reassure you because you do deserve to be here. And just remember that the people who show overwhelming confidence in their capabilities and get it wrong more often than not are the kind of people who probably don't deserve to be here. I know that this topic is a little less technical, but I think it's something that faces IT departments all over the world because the more skilled we get in something, the more likely we are to second guess ourselves. And it's important for you to understand that you are an amazing and wonderful person, and you do deserve to be here. You deserve all of the rewards and accolades that you have earned over the years. But it's just as important that you recognize that there is a generation of people who will be growing up shortly that are going to feel the exact same things. And if you can put voice to what they're feeling and help them understand that it's not just them, that it's everyone, and that it's natural, and that it can be overcome, then maybe we'll get to a point in a few generations where we know that this is something to look out for and we can counter it and be better overall. Be the mentor that those people need. Be the mentor you needed and help them understand that this is as much a part of being a professional as learning the skills or learning how to communicate. And if you do that, I think you're going to find that everyone will be better off. Thank you very much for tuning in for this episode of Tomversations. I hope you found it enlightening, and I hope that it helps you a little bit in the long run to trust yourself a little more. You can always find the latest episode of Tomversations on our website at gestaltit.com. You can also find it on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/gestaltitvideo. Make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you can be notified when all of our new videos come out. And I look forward to talking to you next month to close out 2021 with another great episode. Thanks for listening.